Roger, it's really good to be with you again. It was quite a while ago, I think about just over a year that we last caught up, and I know lots have happened since then, the Northern Powerhouse agenda. You must be busy. Can you share some of your thoughts with us on what's the current situation?
Thank you, Keith. It's good to see you again, and indeed you're right, a lot has happened. And does it only seem like a year ago? It could seem like 10 years ago. When we first met, we talked about the funding that we've just secured and what we plan to do with it. And I can tell you some of the things we've done with that money in terms of investments in colleges, roads, etc. So we're on the journey.
Fantastic. Because it was only recently you opened, I think it was the Enterprise Centre at Leeds Trinity, and I remember you then talking about the LEP's views on education and business.
I mean, it's very important that if you're going to support businesses, and there's 120,000 mainly SMEs across the wider city region, you're going to support their growth with taxpayers' money to invest in capital equipment, premises, etc., technologies. They have to deliver that growth, and they're only going to deliver it if we've got a skilled, enabled and flexible workforce. So it is important that we meet the demands of the economy today and tomorrow by positioning mainly young people, but right across the age spectrum, to take those opportunities. And the best way to position them is to make sure we have the equivalent 21st, 22nd century facilities, rather than barely well repaired Victorian facilities in some of our FE colleges, let alone our universities and indeed obviously our schools.
The Leeds College building, I noticed the other day, I've been around the new Hunslet campus, and then as you come down on the left, there's a new, I think they're building some more there as well, which is absolutely fantastic.
I mean, we have an ambitious programme, what we call our Skills Capital programme, with just a little over 80 million pounds of taxpayers' money to be matched with either private sector or investment in that skills agenda. But it's not just limited to further education. As I said, higher education has a very important role to play in the whole range of skills that we wish to deploy in the city region. I mean, we are fantastic at developing skills. What we're not as good as we need to be, and we're getting better at, is retaining that skill to economic advantage of this region rather than wherever.
Yeah, I remember we were at the launch and spoke very well about the new sort of careers advisories service you work in. We've actually agreed to be mentors there. We went up to West Silk at Stanley and very moved by what they're doing there, and it's good to encourage some of those children. Some are autistic, but it's good to try and encourage employers to work with them, and I do admire what you're doing there and what the school are doing.
It is important because we've made a good start. There are 100 schools engaged in the Careers and Advised Enterprise programme, and there are nearly 100 businesses supporting young people. Because my view is very simple: if you don't inform, how can you enthuse? If you don't enthuse, how do you encourage? And if you don't enthuse and encourage, how do you enable young people to take advantages of more and better jobs that we're trying to create, so that they get the economic benefits of this growth rather than become dependent on it?
And back to the Northern Powerhouse, Roger. I mean, there are lots of comments about it, what's happening, but we were filming the Leeds Chamber had the managing director of TransPennine, and he was talking about 500 million investment up to 2020. I was very pleased to also find out that the Tashi trains are going to be made in the northeast. So are we sort of making good progress now?
I think we are moving from what could be seen as a catchphrase, could be seen as a working title, the so-called Northern Powerhouse project, to not only define what actually needs to be invested in, but more importantly, to what end.
Yes.
For me, I always ask the question, so what is the success we'd like it to be in 10, 20, 30 years, not 10, 20, 30 minutes, and work back from that so that we see the likes of investment by TransPennine or HS2 or what was called HS3, now known as Northern Powerhouse Rail. We see all of those as ingredients in the metaphorical economic cake we're trying to bake. And so I think in the next few months we'll see an articulation of what success looks like, because it is important to remember that, and I've long argued that the North is the solution, not the problem.
Yes, yeah,
to the country's challenges in terms of national debt, etc. Although it has a number of social problems, and let's not shy away from those. But when you look at the North and the £300 billion economy, if it was a country in its own right, it would be the 20th largest economy in the world. Well, for me, if that's a problem, thank the Lord we've got it.
Yes.
But we need to work out, what does success look like? And if the answer is that we will deal with the productivity gap that's emerged between what happened in the North and the average across the whole country, and that is worth at least £50 billion a year. If one of the success was to have dealt with that, you could envision in 20 years' time the Northern economy being at least 25% bigger in today's money, 2016 pounds, than it is today. And that's a prize worth fighting for.
Well, it certainly is, and I think the message, I know you do a very good job here, and we all need to come together to get these positive messages out, so that when people are saying what is happening, there's a process and they do know. And it's like the jibs, isn't it, in Leeds now, when you look around, you can feel that things are buzzing.
2016 there were 22 tower cranes in and around the centre of Leeds.
Yeah.
In 2012 there were 4.
Yeah, so
that's just Leeds.
That tells
then you
the
look
story.
in Bradford, you look in Huddersfield,
Yeah.
across the wider city region, and you see that activity.
Yeah.
So that's reasons for me to be confident, but absolutely no excuse for complacency.
Very much so. I'm meeting some people next week who are based in London, and they're looking at stronger links between Yorkshire. So I think we need to make sure that you're aware of these things and use your influence to make these things happen and get more investment into the county. I think it's there's never enough. No.
But equally, as we sit here today, and I came back in March from the week-long meeting in Cannes. In fact, the weather was a bit like it was here, much to my surprise. We came back recognising that in terms of what's actually happening, what's in planning, where there's permissions, what's in planning, and what's capable of being funded, the city region probably has at least 10 billion of investment opportunities as we sit here today.
Yeah.
Which, as I said, that reinforces my narrative around there's reasons to be confident, but clearly no reason to ease off.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you again, Roger, for such a positive message, and we look forward to supporting the Local Enterprise Partnership and all you're doing.
Thank you, Keith, and I've enjoyed talking to you again. Let's not leave it too long.
Absolutely.
Thank you.